All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is such a treat just to see all of your faces and to welcome the amazing Lyn Conway. She is a dear friend of mine. I just am blessed to call her a dear friend. Blessing in my life and many of yours, I know. And so we're in for quite a treat. She approached us because she loves all of you and she wanted you to hear this information that she had shared on the company family call last week, but wanted to do it in a smaller group setting so that you could hear it again or hear it for the first time and ask questions and really get it in your heart, in your brain, so that we can put it into use right away. So Lyn, thank you so much for loving us and for caring about our success, and take it away.
Betsy, my huge pleasure. Thank you. And last week, for those of you who heard me on the family call, we had very limited time and no time for you to have questions, comments, any of that. And I want to tell you that I'm passionate about this company, what you have, what you can offer to others. I don't work for Touchstone. For those of you who don't know that, I don't work for Touchstone. I have my own company, A Fresh Perspective. And I've been blessed to work with Touchstone for a little over 4 years, I believe it is, and got to know Betsy very early on. And so what we are doing here as 2021 is racing along, my goodness, it's already March 10th, is we have a fresh focus on being able to share what we have with others. I honestly don't want to talk to you about sponsoring today, because the word sponsoring sometimes has a negative connotation, or recruiting sometimes has a negative connotation. And I want to ask you, invite you, when I say you should sponsor, or why don't you sponsor, or what does sponsoring mean to you? I'd like you to share. You can either chat us up. I'd prefer you just unmute yourself and talk to us about how do you react in your head and your heart when I say the word sponsor?
I think of it as sharing a gift and helping women achieve their goals.
Shannon, that's a blessing.
I got a lot of free sparkle too.
The fact that you think about it that way is absolutely a blessing. So Betsy, our work here is done. We'll just hang up now. No, honestly, that's perfect, Shanna. Anybody else? Different impression. I'm going to sneeze. And
Bless you.
That was fun. Okay. Somebody else talk. What do you think when you hear the word sponsor?
First of all, bless you. This is Angie.
Angie.
I told Betsy it kind of has a different connotation for me with Touchstone. I was a director, free car driver for Mary Kay, with Mary Kay for years. I think I got a bad, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to talk bad.
Okay. You can say anything here.
Well, I just think the pressure to build the team, you get your red jacket, and then you get these pins, and then before you know it, you're driving the car and you have to maintain, and you have people calling you I didn't have my son until I was 39 years old, and he's 20 now. And that pressure of people, 10 or 11 o'clock at night sending a note, hey, can you leave a beige pressed powder on your front porch? Yeah, I'm kind of busy right now, but anyway, so
I hear you.
So I guess I got it wasn't a bad feeling, because I loved my team and I loved to help them. But it is, sorry, my alarm's going off. But it has made me hesitant to ask, like when I used to be able to just ask, it just rolled out of my mouth. This is different. I don't know why, but it's different.
Well, and I think the pressure word that you used is one I've heard a lot. this week, as I've been talking with people, a lot of people have felt you should sponsor, felt like pressure. And so I don't think you're alone in that, Angie. Somebody else, how has it made you feel when you've heard the word sponsor? Thank you for that, Angie.
You're welcome.
I'd say sometimes when you think of sponsoring, I think sometimes it's like, oh my God, like, even though I obviously have sponsored, but I think sometimes I can, get kind of nervous about it,
And tell me a little more. Nervous, why?
because I don't want to say the wrong thing, and we've always said, learn to, keep this closed. And you get so excited about it, because of what you do and you love what you do. And, you just, like I said, sometimes, that happens to me where, you don't want to say too much, but then you don't want to say not enough, but I have to remember to listen to the questions and make sure that there's not make sure that I'm not given an open-ended question, that it's, and sometimes I do. I can give myself anxiety over that, thinking I talk too much, or,
I hear you, Judy. And worry about making a mistake is what I'm hearing from you. Is that correct? Yeah. And that can feel like a lot of pressure, just like Angie was saying. If you're worried or anxious, the tendency is to do nothing. And therefore not to open your mouth if you're worried about that. No, I hear you. Anybody else want to jump in here?
Yeah, Lynn. Oh, go ahead, Kathy.
Go for it.
Sorry, Jill.
Well, Kathy, then Jill.
Coming from someone who's trying to get to group leader, which means a whole different sales responsibility, personal sales responsibility. I guess it's like having kids. Once you have, 2 or 3, what's 4, 5, 6? So it's me trying to get to 1, 2, 3, where I'm going to have new sales, personal sales quotas myself. Is kind of nervous. I'm, getting nervous about that. But once you get there, once you get to 3, as far as I know, it's the same after that. So it's just from 1 to 3. So.
That is what parents say. Once you've had the third one, they're sort of raising each other. Okay, thank you for that, Kathy. Jill, go ahead.
So I'm coming at you from a very different lens. I am literally in week 1. I am in the midst of 2 parties.
Okay.
I haven't had a sale yet, but I feel them coming. It's like I can feel them building and questions being asked. But anyway, so for my full-time job, I currently am an HR business partner, and an advocate to us is someone who will stick up for our advocate. I'm, a sponsor.
A sponsor, right?
Is someone who will advocate for you behind closed doors. So what I find in my sponsor with Touchstone is joy. Like, oh my gosh, and I can see it. Like, we're doing a big group party right now, and she's making sure that I'm not getting lost in the shuffle. And she's making sure. So personally, for me, as someone new, I adore my sponsor. I feel like, oh God, thank God for this sponsor. So I just wanted to give you guys that perspective as somebody who's, who you might be potentially sponsoring, right?
Yeah, right.
For me,
right.
she's like my lifeline.
Jill, that's such an important thing for you to share. Thank you so much. Because when you take the word sponsor, it is the root word of responsible. And you can take that 2 ways. Your sponsor is responsible for helping you keep your joy alive. And she is doing that with you. So if you take it from the point of view of what can a sponsor do for someone, it feels energizing and joyful. If you take it from burden, a sense of burden, then it does make you feel like, oh my God. So it's all in the perspective you have on something. And that's what I want to be able to share with you here today, is my fresh perspective on this. Now, when I got started, and some of you know my story, I was a volunteer. I was the person who went to the very first home party I'd ever been to after teaching school and then having 2 kids. and being painfully shy. I mean, I know this person that you see here today, it's hard for you to go, yeah, sure, Lyn. But who I am now is nothing like who I was then. This person has evolved from that person. And I was absurdly shy, didn't know my neighbors, new in the neighborhood, and was invited to a home party. And I went because I hated being shy, and I made up my mind, I'm just going to meet people. It was a daytime party, Tupperware. I didn't talk to anybody, sat in the back of the room, nursed my 5-week-old baby, and listened to the lady talk. And at the end, I'm hanging around. I didn't buy, I didn't book, but I'm hanging around, and I overhear her tell the host that she had earned $50. I'm sure in an effort to recruit the host. And I was like, that was a fortune in my world at that point. So I waited till everybody was gone, helped her carry her stuff to the car, said at curbside, does your company have any jobs available? I did not even know it wasn't a job. I had no idea it was a business. And so I was a volunteer. How many of you, I'm going to put us on gallery view here for a second, raise your hand or wave at us or something if you were a volunteer, if you were the person who said, hey, I want to do this with you. Volunteers, raise your hand. Okay, Shanna was, Linda was, Jody. Okay, not as many.
What was the question? I'm sorry, what was the question? My dogs were barking.
If you recruited yourself, if you said, sign me up, Wendy was, if nobody had to have the Fariba was, okay. A lot. Melissa is kind of like mostly at us. And Jill, are you waving at us too? Okay, kind of, sort of. All right. Now, here's the reason I even asked that question. Volunteers expect that anybody who would get something wonderful out of Touchstone, that might benefit from this, that would be good at it, that could bring something good to Touchstone, that they'll just raise their hand and volunteer. Volunteers think everybody will be a volunteer. And honestly, nothing could be further from the truth. But most people don't have the self-confidence to volunteer. Most people might even play the conversation in their mind and rule themselves out and think, oh no, I wouldn't be any good at that. And no, my friends would think I was crazy. And no, I've heard this and no, that. And so they might have the dialogue, but before they would ever have the bravery, or in my case, just sheer desperation to raise their hand, they have already ruled themselves out. And by the way, some people don't even know what kind of business this is, just like I didn't know. And they think maybe it's a franchise and they have no idea what it costs in order to get started. And some don't want to take your business away because, again, they don't realize you couldn't conceivably reach everybody that's out there that wants Touchstone. So they don't understand that by joining you, then you reach a whole new audience. So most people, at least 9 for every one who volunteers, at least 9 people would be open to at least hearing about the opportunity. We just don't always give them the chance. So I want to share a little bit about that today. And I did title this Just Ask. It's time to get your ask in gear. And that came from Renee Fleming. And I love that. The first time she ever said it, I was like, what did you say? Ask, Lyn, get your ask in gear. Oh, okay, good. And then, like, who do you ask? Well, of course, you're always going to just ask your host. Now, here's the thing. You have to have parties to be able to have hosts to just ask. So this premise is predicated on the fact that you're getting together with some groups of people, which gives you a bigger audience to be able to just ask. Then those hosts have guests and you're just asking the guests. You're just asking the customers after they get their jewels. And you're just asking people you already know and people you meet. So the whole idea here is that the company gives you this amazing tool. This is right on the Touchstone website under training and resources. It's in sponsoring documents. And I encourage each and every one of you to get it printed off. Because what's important about it is it asks you to think who you'd love to work with, what need Touchstone could fill for that person, and what quality would make her a good consultant. As you read down the list of needs, notice that not all of them, in fact, not even half of them, relate directly to money. We always have that like, oh, it's such an incredible income. Who wouldn't want the income? And we fixate on that. And yes, it is. When I think that I was very happy with $50 from one party, and you can make so much more than that. So the money is great, but look at the list. People who are looking for a community to belong to. It's one of my favorites, especially right now. People who have kids at home and perhaps have had their job responsibilities cut, or they had to cut their job responsibilities because they're also being that homeschooling parent, or the parent supervising the homeschooling, and all kinds of different needs here. So it's a great list. What qualities are you looking for? Again, the qualities that you're looking for don't always come to you fully developed, but you might see a spark in somebody that you can mention when you're just asking if this person would like to find out more. And so I do like this form. There's a lot of forms out there that you can use, of course, but I like you pulling this one because it trips things in your brain that would not necessarily have immediately come to mind. Now, I asked you about your sponsoring mindset. And the reason I told you I don't want to talk about sponsoring today, I want to take the pressure off of you from trying to sponsor. I want you to just think about having conversations. I want you to think about getting to know people. I want you to think about, is there a good fit here? Is this person that I'm talking to good for Touchstone? And could Touchstone be good for them? I'm not only thinking about, would Touchstone be good for them? Because people rarely tell you what they need. Even good friends don't tell you when they're having problems in their life. So it's not always possible to guess what they need. You have to have the conversation to find out what they might need that wasn't at the tip of their tongue, or they didn't want to reveal to you. And you have to see, would this person be good for Touchstone also? Because you're looking for the fit. That's all you're looking for. And if you don't ask, well, my grandma told me, don't be selfish. I bet your mom or your grandma told you too, don't be selfish. And my grandma also used to say, if you don't ask, you already have the no. So, hey, there you go. But the other part of what happens if you don't ask is you took away somebody's chance to choose. That's just not fair. And I love you to be open to the idea that you inviting, you just asking somebody to take a look, even if you get a firm no, leave me alone, what did it do to you? You don't, if you didn't ask, you already had the no, right? So it didn't hurt you in any way for somebody to act in a bit rude to you. And that is a bit rude. And you'll hit it every once in a while where somebody is kind of rude. It's okay. It doesn't honestly make any difference. Your responsibility is just to ask. And my light bulb moment, and I related this on the family call, I'll tell you briefly, because as I said, I was really shy when I got started, and I was really bad. That is, I'm not just being self-deprecating here. I was really bad. but I was committed to doing enough to make that what started out just as $50 a week for my family. So I would have grocery money. And because I was very bad at booking, it took me a while to get that skill down, but I kept asking people, getting bookings. I got better at sales. I got better at knowing how to book. I learned a booking game that then helped me get the people who wanted a book. And so now I'm good at sales. I'm good at booking. I'm often in the front of the room for top in sales. Heck, I was queen of sales at the annual conference. And I'm like, that was more recognition than this little girl had ever gotten in her life. And my upline starts saying to me, you should recruit, you should sponsor. And I said, why? And she said, well, you earn more money. I was already earning so much more money than I ever imagined I would. Well, they give you a car. It was Tupperware. The car came with strings attached, of course, but she wasn't mentioning that part. And my response was, I already have 2 cars. I don't need a car. Okay. She said, you get recognition. I was getting recognition more than I'd ever gotten in my life. All the reasons she gave me to sponsor were all about me, what she perceived as what it would do for me. My first recruit came from nothing to do with anything to do with my business. My mom rented cottages in Southwest Lower Michigan. I lived in Oak Park, Illinois at the time. And my mom wanted to know, would I run the ad in my local newspaper? Because as she said, well, you don't work. How many of us who work from home have heard that in our day? And I said, I'd be happy to run it. So one day my phone rang and it was a nice lady named Connie. And I had to ask her questions to see if her family was a good fit for the cottage. So I was asking about her family. Husband, 2 kids. How old are your kids? Almost exactly the same age as my kids. And then I said, what week would you like? She told me. I said, do you work? Is that your vacation week? She said, well, I work part-time at Sears. I said, oh, that sounds like fun. She said, fun? I don't think so. I said, well, at least you get to pick your hours. And she said, no, full-timers pick their hours. Part-timers get leftovers, holidays, weekends, evenings. I said, well, at least do they pay you well? And she said, I clear about $50 a week. And out of my mouth popped, I make that in one night. And Connie said, I'd sure like to know how. Well, Connie lived 4 blocks from me, and she always said through all the years that she became one of my best friends. I'd never moved faster in my life. I packed up both of the kids, the diaper bag, drove 4 blocks to her house, and sat at her kitchen table with her and explored how my company could help her have a better quality of life. Did I drive fast with my babies in the car because I wanted to recruit? No. I drove over there because I had something that I could see would be good for her. And that was my motivation. And that became my aha moment for why I should sponsor, because there were people who needed what I had to offer. And if I didn't offer it to them, maybe nobody would. Maybe they'd never find out that this could be life-changing for them, or at least a fun gig. So that became my light bulb moment, and really literally changed the trajectory, hard word to say, of my career. So I said that hosts are your primary candidates. And whenever anybody says to me, oh yeah, sure, I asked my host when I closed out her party, I'm like, you should have asked at least 5 times before you were closing out her party. And especially for those of you who are newish in Touchstone, I want to be real clear on this. You're not asking, so you want to do this? You want to do this? You're not saying, hey, I want to sign you up. I want to say, no, you're planting seeds every step of the way from the time you book her. When you first begin your host coaching, why do you want to have your party? What appeals to you about Touchstone? And then you can say, Have you ever thought of doing something like this? Some people will say yes. They would like to find out more. And if they say yes, you can have the conversation, and they may want to join you before their party, in which case it becomes their launch party. That's fine. But a lot of times, most of the time, they're not just jumping in your lap and saying, sign me up. So next opportunity, you're checking on attendance. You're saying, anybody come to mind that you think might enjoy finding out more about doing what I do? And they might say at that point, yeah, I've been thinking more about it. I'd like to talk. Okay, great. It could be them. But often it isn't. You get all the way to pre-party, and in that pre-party, be it in their home or be it on Zoom or if you're on Facebook, wherever you are, you're having that little pre-party with your host. And you can say something like, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being, where do I sign? Where are you? A lot of times you'll get a 5, 6, 7. And you can say, clearly you're at the thinking stage. Can I tell your guests you're at the thinking stage about doing what I do? And most of the time they'll say, yeah, you could say that. So during the party, you're saying, our host is at the thinking stage about doing what I do. If you would be willing to be one of her first parties, just put a little heart in the chat area, or if you're live, on the order form, because you would be one of her first bookings. And when you're closing out her party, you're doing the sparkle math with her. You're letting her know what she would have earned if it had been her party. And you're saying you could still take these bookings. A number of your friends said they would help you get started. Simple. 80% of the people who say yes to a product or service say yes after the 5th through 12th exposure. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've already had 5 exposures by the time you're closing out her party, as opposed to it coming out of the blue when you're closing out with her and saying, hey, what do you think? You want to do this with me? So I want you to be priming the pump, planting the exposures. And remember, many of the exposures are not necessarily coming from you. Could be you brought it up. It's 2 a.m. She goes to the website. She clicks on the join us button to find out a little bit more. She could have an exposure that you weren't even there for. You don't even know where she is in her exposure cycle, but you are keeping the ball rolling, knowing very few people say yes the first or the second exposure. Now, many of these questions are questions you could use for anybody. I put them on the host page only because they apply to questions you could have with any host, but you already love the jewels. Have you ever thought about doing what I do? Could also be for a customer or somebody who has a friend of yours who has admired your jewelry. So any of these questions can be crossovers, with the exception of doing the math, the sparkle math with her. But what appeals to you most about Touchstone is universal. You could ask that of anybody. Would a few $100 extra a month benefit your lifestyle? Is a question that, as you're having conversation with somebody, especially if they're talking about extra expenses coming up. My daughter was talking about voice lessons for my granddaughter. And so that's the kind of thing you might be having a conversation with somebody that you could say, would a few extra $100 benefit you? It's a question that opens the door to further explanation. Why not watch me and see if you can picture yourself? I hope you're saying that at every party. Watch me. See if you can picture yourself doing what I do, which is why I love the party that Heather Curtin does also on Glam Central, showing how you do the party with just the kit. It's so simple. Most people could picture that. And of course, does anyone else come to mind? you think might be interested in learning more. And of course, for guests, the same thing, but here specifically, did you enjoy yourself? Please pause. Please don't run over whatever it is they want to say. I found a big old chip clip upstairs at my daughter's house. When you have to stop yourself from talking, oh, that hurts. A chip clip is very, very helpful to prevent you from overrunning their answer. You've got to listen to what they have to say. Asking questions here is not about having 3 questions and you ask everybody the same 3 questions and then go, good, done, I ask questions. Asking questions is about uncovering what's going on with this person that you're talking to, listening carefully, finding out what's the next logical thing you'd like to know to be able to find out more about them. Betsy often refers to it as like peeling back the layers of an onion. It is identifying more and more. And there are a few questions that you could just always have in your back pocket. One is, what are your thoughts about that? Hey, what are you thinking about that? Another is, if they say something and it makes you curious, tell me more about that. I want this to feel so conversational to you. And yes, I put some on here that are like, if I send you a quick video, would you take a look? The idea being, if they say yes, then you follow up with, would you be kind enough once you look at it to let me know what you think? So that you keep the conversation rolling. Would you be open to a quick chat? Many people tell me after they get their jewelry is the best time to have another conversation. And of course, the Amy template has that 14-day, I see you got your sparkle mail, how fun. Are you loving your new jewels? Would you like to see how much jewelry you could get for free? Why don't we talk? It's inviting in a casual way somebody to find out what other benefits they might be able to experience. And I don't want you to ignore people you already know. This especially applies to our new consultants here. Jill, I'm talking to you. Kathy, although you're not super new, I'm talking to you because you know people who watch you. You've already told many of them, and please be making sure you tell them that you've got a new fun gig. I think it's so important for you as a new or newish consultant to say, you know, I'm learning a lot and it would be so much more fun to learn with somebody that I enjoy. Could we talk? I'd love to have whoever your sponsor is be able to teach you what I'm learning at the same time. It's like a twofer for her. So you can pursue curiosity, which people are curious about what you're doing, whether they're curious in a negative way or a positive way, for you to be able to say, I've been thinking about you and I'd love to work with you because you're the hardest working person I know, or everybody comes to you for advice. And I've been thinking what fun it would be to work together. Can we talk? You may not know what to say yet. That's okay. Remember, this is about conversation. It's not about answering their questions. I mean that. Like when you say what appeals to you most, and somebody says, well, you said you earned $250 and it didn't look like you did much, actually. The temptation is for you to say, not only that, but when I have $1,800 in sales in the month, I'm going to get a 5% bonus. And then when I have 3 people and I promote to group leader, I'm going to get a 10% bonus. And then I'm going to be able to get this and that. You throw up all over them. It's so much more than they wanted to know. And instead of just saying, Yeah, I do make great money. What would that extra $250 do for you right now? Calm, a question, still your racing heart, and just ask the next logical question. It's so important for you to dig a little. But if somebody comes back to you that has been like, well, I've got to think about it, your obligation is to follow up. Think about it this way: the ball is always in your court. It is never that person's obligation to follow up with you. And when you follow up, one question here, this one I would like you to write down. Would you like to talk more about how Touchstone would fit in your life? Or do you just want to know how to get started? Because remember, they were thinking while you weren't talking to them. They were considering the possibility. They might have been exploring on the website. They may have already made up their mind. So instead of assuming in this follow-up conversation that they've got a lot more questions, instead, do you just want to talk about how it would fit, or do you want to know how to get started? And they may, many of them, say, well, what would I do next? Well, we'd personalize your business plan. We'd get you a kit, and we'd get you your training started. My upline will handle that with me. So please remember, according to a DSA survey, and I actually was a member of the DSA, and I saw when the survey came out, they asked thousands of consultants from different companies, what was the biggest reason that they joined their company? Biggest reason, number one, because somebody asked them. It's so simple, but that's what works. And I want you to see these statistics. The top statistics are in my book, Makeup Optional, and not Mary Kay makeup. The subtitle is Lessons I Learned Working from Home. And I had known these. I researched them before I published my book. They still held true. They're from the National Association of Sales Executives. Only 2% of the people are going to say yes the first time they're exposed to something. 3% more on the second exposure. And then you double it, 5% more on the third exposure. But we're still only at 10% of the people are going to say yes through third exposures. That's not 3 times you asked them. It's 3 times they learned a little bit more about something. 10% more on the fourth exposure, but here's the 80% of the people who are going to say yes on the 5th through 12th exposure. Now, I didn't know these bottom exposures, these bottom statistics, and they blew me away. 48% of consultants never follow up, not once. 48%. 25% follow up once, but then stop. That's 3/4 of consultants might do one follow-up, nothing else. And yet look at the statistics above. Only 12% will make 3 contacts and then stop. Only 10% will go beyond 3 contacts. Please, my friends, please be part of the 10%. Please, for the sake of those people out there who need and would love to find out more about Touchstone, please be part of the 10%. So I want to ask you, what has occurred to you during this time? Any hard things happen for you? Anything pique something in your brain where you're like, I can do something with that? Any concerns? We're alone here. We're fine. No judgment zone. Ask anything you want. Bring up anything you want.
Lyn, could I ask a clarifying question?
Of course, Betsy.
When you say contacts, what could that look like?
It can be a note in the mail. It can be, and Betsy, that's a great question, because I was blessed at the time that I was doing what you do. We had the phone and we had in person. Now there are so many more ways to reach somebody. And I do encourage you to get voice to voice, or like this, eyeball to eyeball with people at some point during this. But an Amy contact or a text or an email is a contact, especially if it has a question at the end that requests somebody to respond to you. So a contact is two ways. An exposure could be one way. An exposure can be, can I send that video to you? Yes, you send the video. That's an exposure. But a contact is when you say, I'd love to know what you think. And you get a little dialogue going. Think of the times you use text. And I use text a lot with my kids. If I have to have a quick little, like, get something resolved, we'll text back and forth, done. But think of the times where a phone or a voice conversation is beneficial. Like, would this time we've been together, would it be as meaningful to you as if I just typed everything out? No.
No, not at all.
No, I just want you to use the logic of how communication works, and that your voice, your passion, your energy, your caring shows more when you're voice to voice or eyeball to eyeball than it does no matter how many emojis you put in something. So just realize people need time. Most people, 80% of the people, need time to get accustomed to an idea. And the exposures you're giving somebody are getting them more accustomed to the thought of, I wonder if that is me she's talking about. Thank you for that question, Betsy. Who else? What's going on in your head and heart?
Lynn, this is Angie.
Go, Angie.
I'm sorry, who does step on?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Angie, then Sean.
All right. So Lynn, I'm thinking about, so I have a upcoming hostess that I'm going to talk to in about 20 minutes.
Good girl.
She is a realtor. She has a very established base of customers. I'm going to flat out ask her, if she plans on inviting those customers or if she's just going to do her friends. But I wrote down here two things. You said, what appeals to you about this the most, the jewelry the most? And then I wrote down, on a scale of 1 to 10, can I tell your guest you're thinking about it? So this lady bought only one curled up ring from a friend of mine. She has repeatedly messaged on my VIP page how many compliments that she gets. So
Hey,
when does that enter the
Right.
conversation? So I'm going to
Great,
talk for
great,
tonight.
Angie.
Okay, go.
Great. Because she's giving you some clues, but you're not at the point where you would say, can I tell everybody you're at the thinking stage? Your question before that is, so I'm curious, you're giving everybody really good feedback about the compliments you get on your jewelry. Have you ever thought of adding something like this to your repertoire? Have you ever thought about doing what I do in addition to your success as a realtor? You've got a built-in client base. Have you ever thought about it? And then get that nice chip clip out and say anything else. Let her respond to, has this even been on her mind?
Yeah, Betsy can tell you I'm a blurter, so I will have to get that chip clip. So
You might have to curb your natural flirting enthusiasm. And remember what flirting does to people. Go ahead, Angie.
Yeah, it was easy with my realtors, because I have several realtors that are Scentsy customers. I don't mean to disrupt. I'm just throwing this out. And that makes sense. So sense literally.
We'll play on words.
So, when they sell a home, they buy a warmer and a perfect welcome home scent from me,
Sure.
and they leave it on the counter with their card. I'm struggling with how to correlate.
You don't have to, Angie.
Okay.
You don't have to correlate, because all you're tapping into is, does this person see some appeal in having an additional gig, not necessarily in coordination with their other business, other than they be decked out in their jewels, and that might cause people to comment, but it doesn't have to fit like a puzzle piece.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that she would
Thanks.
wear that. That's a great,
Sure.
great point. Thank you.
Shanna, you're welcome, Angie. Shanna?
Yes, I love when you said calm your racing heart, because I truly get so excited when they, show a little bit of interest, but from working with Betsy for years, I've learned to chip clip it and ask questions. But I love knowing more about how it could fit into your life and what it could do for you and your family. And because I have someone that joined and they're like, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I have no expectations other than the ones you put on yourself. I just want to help you achieve them. So I love when you said calm your racing heart. So thank you. And calm questions too. Don't be too, diarrhea of the mouth.
It would be lovely if you could go in with 3 questions on an index card, ask them, and done. That's not how this works. So this really engages human skills that make you a better partner, a better mother, a better friend, a better relationship to anybody, because you're learning to listen without running over the conversation. Good. Thank you for that. One more person. We have time for one more.
I'll go.
Go for it.
I actually had a conversation right before this, so kind of piggybacking on what Shanna said, because I get very nervous and palms start sweating, and I kind of now realize that I'm over analyzing it too much, as opposed to just having the conversation and being, like Betsy said, that girlfriend, just getting to the heart of, what is it that they would love and what could it be for them, and kind of digging to understand that better.
Oh, Rita, that's so perfect. That is actually a great way to close out this call, because just what you said, just digging to find out, how could you be a blessing? How could Touchstone be a blessing in their life? And I know not everybody is open to the idea of what a gift you give, because you get scared and you think to yourself, well, what if they don't want the gift? What if they say no? What if they get the box and they never unwrap it? It doesn't make any difference. Just like any other gift, your job is offer the gift. And then if they don't open it, that's really their problem. Betsy is saying, Debbie, jump in. Debbie, what are you jumping in with, honey? Thank you.
I have had a lot of ahas tonight, but one of the things that I feel is that's touching me is that when we are talking to someone about this, that when you are yourself and it just comes right smack dab from your heart, I think it makes things so much easier for us. And putting that little chip on our lip, I think makes it easier, because we are who we are, we're settled. And when it comes from the heart, people know that, because you're genuine and you're sincere, and you're not being salesy, you're not being pushy, because you care. And that comes out. And I think that's important for all of us to understand that. And that's something that, like right now, my heart is just like, yes, I got this,
So please let me ask each of you to just right now make a list. Who do you already know, or who have you met that is, and think of the categories, let's see how fast I can find it on there. Think of all of the various categories that are on, there it is. The job situation that has changed, the college students who are coming home or are studying remotely, the moms of young kids, any of these categories. This is right on tools and resources. Betsy, you can tell everybody exactly where it is. But please, please, please make a list and then make it your emotional responsibility to reach out to these people and say, I thought of you because, whatever the because is. And I'd love to, and if you have not talked to this person and you feel guilty about that, to own that. I feel very badly. I should have talked to you a long time ago, but I'm talking to you now. I'd love to be able to have a conversation. Anytime I feel that my responsibility I have let down, I own that. I'm so sorry. I should have talked to you. All right. Thank you, Debbie. Oh, who is coming into our room now at the end of our hour and got the time change wrong? Okay. I think that was a Debbie. And Debbie, we're just ending, darling. Betsy, thank you so much for having me. Everybody that's here, thank you. And God bless all of you as you go about processing the gift you have to offer and who you're going to offer it to. And you've got, honestly, the best leaders in the business here to work with to help you with this. Never feel alone. Never feel like you have to do this on your own. Just raise your hand and say, hey, help me with this. Okay?
Thank
All
you
right.
so
Lynn,
much,
thank you so
Lynn.
much.
Thank you
Thank you.
all. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.